Welcome to the Moonlight Side Hustle and Business Show. I am your host, Eric Lindsey. Here at Moonlight, we choose to focus on achieving financial security, not job security. And today we are here with Ange Dove. Ange is a seasoned business coach, author, and speaker who turned her side hustle into a thriving 20-year online business. After relocating to Singapore from the UK with no network, she built a multi-million-dollar business while balancing a corporate job and family life. Without further ado, welcome to the show, Ange.
Hi, Eric. Thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
Okay, well, I am super excited about you coming on to the show. It's good to have some international guests come on to hear different perspectives and to see all that you've accomplished. That's really impressive. To build a multi-million dollar business, you retired from your job over 20 years ago, and now you're moving into other ventures. And so we're eager to unpack some of those details. But before we get into those details, if you could share just a little bit more about yourself and also how you got started in the business that you operate.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So, as you said, my name is Ange Dove. I'm a professional copywriter and I'm also a business coach, and I help working professionals and retirees to start their own business just in the same way that I did 20 years ago, but to do it online and just earn a side hustle income from that.
Okay, great, great. So copywriting, what does that entail? What all do you do? And is that something that is transferable? Because I know you're located within Singapore as of today. Is that something that can be done in all areas of the world, or is that something that's Singapore specific?
No. So, yeah, as you said, I live in Singapore, but I'm originally from the UK. But I've been in Singapore for 30 years. And really, I was a teacher. I was teaching English as a foreign language, and that was why I was in Singapore. And over the years, I kind of recognized that there was a need for writing services in Singapore. And I put myself out there just to offer those services while I was teaching. So that's how my side hustle began. But copywriting is a business that you can run from anywhere. You just need a computer, a laptop, and an internet connection, and you're good to go. I just had two young children at the time. I just wanted to work from home. I wanted to be able to control my time more than anything. That was the most important thing for me at the time. So I recognized that if I could set that business up and get it going, then that would give me the freedom to be able to manage my time my way, be able to take my kids to school, look after them, be here when they were awake. Because I was finding that in my teaching job, we didn't really have any help. So I was doing the day job, if you like, and my husband would do an evening job. And we were like ships that passed in the night. And then by the time I got home, my responsibility was getting the kids to bed. So I didn't really have any quality time with them. And I wanted to change that. So that's really what set the ball in motion. But at the time when I did it, I didn't actually intend to start a business. I just saw this opportunity to be able to, because it was the time when you just got your first personal computer, right? Home computer. So I just kind of recognized quite early that I could offer services and just send things by email. And I didn't have to be in an office. I could work from home. So that's why I started it. But in order to get paid, I needed to register a business of some kind. So that's what I did. And that's how it all started.
Wow. Yeah, so that's really innovative to take on such a new platform and a
Mm.
new medium in which the internet, it sounds like it was pretty new at that point in time, over 30 years ago. So that'll put us back at 1994. What was taking place with the internet at that point in time? Was it just rolling out, or was it already well established over in the area in which you were living?
Right. It just started. So it was around about 2000, early 2000s at the time when we got our first home computer. And this is how green I was at the time when I started up, was I had to send my first project off to the client. And I knew enough to send an email at that time, but I had no idea how to attach a file. And I had to phone a friend. This is how early it was actually, because then I phoned a friend who was working in a design agency, and I asked her, how do I send a file? And she was, oh, do you know, I don't know. So things have come a long way since then, but that was how it was at the beginning. It was that the era of the dial-up, when you would hear those awful noises and just hope it connected.
Hmm.
That was when it was. So yeah.
You guys were early adopters. That's what they would call you
Yeah.
guys. You guys got on board pretty early, and that's really
Yeah.
good, though. You were able to make some things work, and it sounds like
Mm,
you began to structure things. So, how were you able to form a business out of such
mm,
a new product, such a new platform, such as the internet, and
yeah.
be able to generate clients from that? And just give us some details. How did you go about managing life, your W-2,
Mm,
and your business?
okay. So when I first started, as I said, I recognized that I wanted time. I wanted my free time. And with the computer, I knew that I could work from home. So that's how it started. And I knew also that I had to make it work. I didn't want to go back to teaching. I was still teaching at that point, but I didn't want that to be my full-time job anymore. So when I started the business, I had no business knowledge whatsoever. I'd never run a business before. I didn't really know that many people who were running businesses. So it was all completely new to me. So I made every mistake in the book when I started. And but I just knew I had to make it work. I knew that this was my ticket kind of thing, my golden ticket. I had to make it work. So getting my first customers, this was still in the days of the yellow pages, and people were still relying on the yellow pages. There wasn't a search engine. Alta Vista was the search engine, right? That was if you remember that, right? This is before Google even existed. And Yellow Pages was the way I actually got my first customers. So I just randomly chose some different customers from the Yellow Pages, and I posted an invitation to them to meet up with me. So that's how it was done. And then when they called me, then I met up with them. So I got my first client through there, and that's how it all started. And then what I did was I called around a few design agencies, graphic design agencies, because in those days they didn't have writers in house. So I called them around. So I got about a stable of about 10 graphic design agencies that I could work for. So that provided me with a kind of a semi-regular income that I could rely on. And then the issue with that was that I didn't get paid until they got paid, and I wasn't in control of how and when they got paid. So if a client was late in paying, I couldn't chase them up. So I pretty soon recognized that I can't rely on the design agencies. I have to get my own clients as well. So that's when I started to build up my own client base. And then when I had enough of those, I was able to then give up the teaching job completely and just work full time in the business. So that took in total about 6 months to make that transition.
So you were able to transition out of your W-2 within 6 months?
Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive. So
Yeah.
from the time of business formation all the way until you decided that you're going to throw in the towel
Mm,
with
mm,
the W-2, it was a total of
mm.
6 months.
Yeah. And I was quite lucky at the time because there weren't many copywriters around in Singapore at the time. There were a few freelancers, but there weren't any businesses actually running it as a business. It was just as a freelance hobby kind of thing. So it was quite easy to get work. So actually, I found myself in the opposite situation. It wasn't trying to find work, it was trying to cope with the number of jobs that I had. All
Okay.
right. So, yeah. So I very quickly got so busy that I ended up, they call it in Singapore being a kanchong spider. That's kind of like a little bit, like you say, like running around like a headless chicken, right? I
Hmm.
was so busy. I was doing everything basically. I was doing the admin. I was, and this is in the day of fax machines as well. So I'd be sending faxes. I sound so old. And then Yes, it was in the days of fax machines. So I was doing all the admin work, I was meeting the clients, and I was doing the writing. So in the early days, before I transitioned to making that a full-time thing, I was doing that while I was also having the teaching job. So most of my work was done in the evening or at night. So I didn't have that much sleep in those days. And I had two kids under the age of 2 as well. So it was quite stressful. But I always had my eye on the end goal. I always knew that if I could just get through that period, then I'd be able to set myself up right. So what I ended up doing then was hiring an admin assistant first. That was my first hire. And because I hired the admin assistant, I then needed to have an office because I couldn't bring her to my home. So I had to get an office. So that was a big leap for me at that stage, was getting the office and getting the first hire, because that meant I'd have to bring in the income in order to pay them, to pay her every month and to pay the rent. And that was something completely different for me. So that was very uncomfortable at first, but we loved the office. We had a great time working there. And then very soon I had to get a writer to help me. So that's how it all started. And then when I had to get the next hire, the office was too small. So I had to move office, and then it sort of grew from there. So I ended up in the mid 2000s with a staff of 10. I had 10 staff in house, working in a really nice shop house. These are very nice buildings in Singapore that look like houses, but there's some kind of retail shop at the bottom and residential at the top. So we were in the residential places. Nowadays, a lot of these shop houses in Singapore are converted into offices. So we were there and we had 10 staff. That's what I grew it to at that point. And nothing was really planned. It was all, okay, we need more staff because we got more work. And we kind of ended up being a marketing agency at that point. We had web designers, graphic designers, copywriters. Then I had sales and admin in there as well.
Okay, it sounds like you guys were really fortunate. You came into a business and you just really got swamped with too much business,
Mm.
which is every business person's dream, to be able to have so many people beating down your door that you're
Yeah.
able to bring in significant amounts of income. So that's amazing that you were able to do that. So, with you being a business coach, what do you promote? Because that's not going to be the same story for
Yeah.
everyone that goes to launch a business, that they're going to
Mm.
automatically have so many clients or so many customers that it's going to be really difficult to keep up. What do you
Mm.
teach your students or your clients as of today, regards to getting customers and how it should look in the beginning?
Well, it's all completely different today because you wouldn't mail your customers.
Mm-hmm.
It would be on Google, or it would be on Facebook ads or organic marketing. So that's one of the things that changed. But part of the value I think I give to my clients is that I can take them through how to avoid some of the mistakes I made or that I didn't know at the time when I started my business. So it's things like negotiation, right, on price and things like that. So when I had a customer, and what I didn't realize at the time in Singapore, that they really bargained on price, especially in the early days, and I was not prepared for that. So I gave a fair price and then I got bargained down. So I was working for a pittance kind of thing at the beginning. So quickly realized that's not the way to go. So, okay, we have to play them at their game, put the prices up, go down. So I got used to negotiation, but that was not a comfortable thing for me. Didn't really like talking about money. So that was one thing. Hiring staff was another. I mean, I had no experience in HR, no idea how to handle staff. So even learning about the fact that people have different personalities and they react to things in different ways. That was all something I had to learn as I built the team, which I didn't really realize before. Um, so being able to understand those different personality types and the way they behave and what they expect and what they're comfortable with was something that I had to learn if I was going to keep staff. So things like that is the things that I would be able to bring to the table. But it's also copywriting is another thing that I help them with, because getting the right message is so important. You have to be crystal clear in what it is you offer in order for people to want to buy from you. So I think that copywriting is one of the greatest skills really in terms of marketing. You can't do it without copywriting. But of course, what my customers do have today, which I didn't have, is AI, right?
Hmm.
They can get things done so much quicker today, which we didn't have in our time. It all had to come from here.
Hmm.
Now it does so. But I help and I guide them through how to get things out of ChatGPT that they wouldn't have been able to get necessarily without the prompts that I have, things like that. So yeah, so that's one of the ways I help, is like guiding them through what not to do and guiding them the right way so that they get there quicker as well.
Okay. And what type of AI software are you guys using? I heard ChatGPT, and pretty much
Mm,
that's the go-to, that's the standard. But is there
yeah,
anything else that you guys are using as far as for images, etc.? What are you guys
yeah.
concentrating on?
Mostly it's ChatGPT. And I don't really get too involved in images really
Hmm.
at the moment. I think there's still a way to go with those anyway.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, mostly ChatGPT. I put things in, and then I train people as well how to use. I go into businesses and I train their teams how to use ChatGPT to write in their brand voice, which is something that a lot of people don't realize that you can do, is train it to actually write in your company's brand voice.
Hmm.
So I usually find I'd go into the training course at the beginning of the day and say, okay, how do you feel about ChatGPT? And they go, oh, we're fed up with it now. We don't like it. It's given us the same thing. It's boring. It gives us the same words. It's the same format, and we can't use it. It's not our, it's not how we'd write. And I say, okay, well, let's see how you feel at the end of the course then. And then by the end of the course, they're going, oh my God, this is fantastic. I can use this. So yeah, they're really excited then when they can see how they can actually use the tool for their business. Then they get really excited. So, and this is only the early days. This is just the start of AI, right? You can't imagine how it's going to grow from here.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard quite a few people say this is the worst that it's going to be. And so
Mm,
if
mm.
this is the worst that it's going to be and it's taking
It's pretty
I
good.
absolutely have gotten rid of a few virtual assistants because I no longer need them to do a lot of the things
Yeah.
that they were charging me to do, like show notes
Yeah.
for podcasts, show notes for YouTube. There's absolutely no need for that. We were
Yeah.
chatting offline about Descript.
Yeah.
Descript does the job of what a podcast editor would have done and
Yes.
charged anywhere from $20 to $100 per
Yeah.
episode for. And so AI is revolutionizing the business world and
It
for
is.
side hustles as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. There are so many things you can do with it. And like as you say, with the show notes, it's just literally 5 seconds, it's done. Right. And
Exactly.
it gets it right. It just
Hmm.
gets it right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm,
And so you've been able to build a multi-million dollar business in Singapore.
mm,
I know
mm.
that your dollars are a little bit different than ours, but multi-million dollars in any location is still very impressive. And so what do you credit as being the most pivotal and key to your success?
I think for my for my business, I mean it's different for every business, but for mine, Google Ads was good for me because I just had to put out I just had to set up the Google Ads, and I was getting about 10 inquiries a day when the business was at its heyday. 20 inquiries, 10 to 20 inquiries a day. And I'd only have to close one of those in the month to make my money back on the ads. And obviously, we closed a lot more than one in a month. So it wasn't hard to find customers because the customers were already looking for the service and they were warm. So being able to convert them was quite easy because they were already there. It was just a case of they knew they wanted it, and it was B2B. So I was dealing with multinational companies that knew that they wanted the service. It didn't take any convincing to get them to convert to a client, except just for them to decide whether they wanted to work for us or they wanted to work with another company. That was all. But actually being aware that they were there, they just had to Google the services in Google and they could find us very easily.
Wow.
Mm.
So choosing the right way to market is
Mm.
what you really account or credit as to what led to the major success in which you've achieved. And so that's amazing
Yeah.
that you would
So,
pinpoint it,
mm,
because traffic, it is the lifeblood of all
yes.
business, whether you're in Singapore, whether you're in
Yeah.
the United States, you have to have traffic. Without traffic, you won't have customers, and without customers, you won't have income.
Yes, that's right. And then I found for the coaching business that I'm running on the side, Facebook ads works for that. So you're right. It's like knowing which one to go with and just experimenting until you find which works really.
Okay. And if you could just
Mhm.
elaborate on exactly what it is that you're doing as of today. And so we know that you started off concentrating on copywriting.
Mm.
Now you're moving into coaching. Give us some
Mm.
details as to what made that change and what was the catalyst for that, and share with us some details as to what does your business look like as of today.
Okay. So how this all started for me really was there's two things to this I would say that would maybe help your listeners. One is that as I started, well, when I was doing the copywriting business, I came across a software for writing that I wanted to use called Scrivener. So I downloaded it, and then when I opened it, it was a little bit like Photoshop. It had tools on the top, tools down the side, nothing in the middle. And it was like, how do I use this? I didn't know how to use it. So I started Googling, got onto YouTube, found a few videos, but all the videos were all disparate. They were all, talking about a tiny little thing in each of the software, but nothing that I could string together and make me understand how to use it. I had bits of information missing. So then I found a guy that was offering a course on how to learn Scrivener fast. And that was his course name, How to Learn Scrivener Fast. And so I bought his course for $4.99. And that put me into the world of informational products, right? Being able to teach people how to do something with your expertise. You've got something that that somebody else doesn't know, and they would pay for the solution if it makes things easier. So I was in that situation where I needed to learn this tool, needed to learn it fast. He gave me that solution, so I was willing to pay. So then when I came into that world, I was like, oh, okay, wow, I could do this actually with what I know. But the thing I would say, like for your readers, is because I was working in the copywriting business and it was going well, transitioning over to a business coach as a side hustle wasn't my key focus. So anytime things got busy in the copywriting business, things were left on the coaching business. So just understanding that when you're going into your side hustle, you do have to make some kind of priority on it. Otherwise, you're laying back on a safety net and you're not going to fully make that transition. So sometimes it's got to hurt a little bit in order to make that transition over, I would say. And with me, that pain came with ChatGPT actually, because the demand for copywriting not completely disappeared and people still need it, but I'm not getting the 20 calls a day that I used to get. So having that reason to get things going is something that helps, because otherwise, if you're too comfortable, you're just going to sit back with what you know, and it's going to be a someday thing. So I think having a plan to get that going and having a coach or someone to be answerable to, because if you don't make the moves and you're the only one planning the moves and nobody else knows about it, then if you don't do it, nobody's going to know except for you. So being held accountable by somebody else is something that is important, I think, as well, if you really want to get it done.
Yeah, coaching is 100% important because
Mm.
it really will help you get to the next level. Just as it helped
Mm.
you, you were able to hit a wall initially, but
Mm.
you were able to locate a gentleman that had the solution to your problem, and he
Mm.
was selling it through digital courses. And
Mm.
that is a lot of times the way to be able to cross over a hurdle, by buying someone else's course
Mm.
that has been there and done that, and you can move forward. You can go forward a little bit faster than
Mm.
trying to cobble a bunch of YouTube videos together and a bunch of
Yes.
Google searches together. If
Yeah.
someone already has the information, why not pay that individual that 4.99 in order to be able to get past the hurdle that's been
Yeah.
hanging you up? So I am a strong proponent of
Mm.
coaches and buying courses, and that has been one of the secrets to my success as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's amazing that you were able to get to the next level, start
Yeah.
building your business. And I also love the fact that you're building your business on the side of your main business. So your copywriting
Mm.
business, that's your bread and butter, but
Mm.
you've got your coaching business coming up on the
Mm.
side. And so you're
Mm.
able to bring that up safely and not be so hard pressed to make this work because you already have a steady income. And so
Yeah.
that is a lot of secret sauce regarding businesses and side hustles, is to be able to build your side hustle up on something that you already have going that's already established. So I think what you're doing
Yeah.
is absolutely amazing. And yeah, good job. Great job on it.
Thank you.
So we've got a portion of the show that we like to call our Moonlight Coach Around. And typically what we do is ask our guests a few questions. If you could hold your response to 1 to 2 minutes per question, that'd be
Hmm.
great.
Hmm.
The first question that I have for you is, how many hours a week do you recommend a person invest into building their business to have a successful business like yours?
Oh, it depends on how many hours they have available. And I would say with AI as well, it's just so much quicker to do it today. But I would say at least 2 hours a day, at least 2 hours a day to get things going. What I was doing, as I said, was I was working in the evening and the nighttime really to get things done with my copywriting business when I first started it. What I tend to do now is, and this wouldn't be what you would be able to if you were working full time for somebody else, but as I'm working for my business, I tend to block time in my calendar. Right, this is my copywriting business. I'm going to do it between this time and this time. This is my coaching. I'll do it between this time and this time. So time blocking, I think, is really important, that you can block things out and just decide, right, I'm going to work on this today, and just be clear on the things that you need to get done and work on them at the times you said you were going to work on them. Right.
Yeah, great answer. The next
Mm-hmm.
question I have for you is, what kind of advice could you offer someone about dealing with mistakes, staying determined, and knowing when to pivot on a business idea?
Oh, okay. How to stay? Well, I'm someone that's pretty stubborn, I would say. So having that as a character trait would be helpful. I'm kind of a never give up type person, and I'm going to do this until it works, the kind of thing. But if it's obvious that it's not working, then, or you need to, as you say, pivot. Um, like with me for my copywriting business, it's not something that I want to do for the rest of my life anyway. But it's also knowing that the demand has gone down and that this is just the beginning and AI is just going to change everything. So at the beginning, I kind of put my head in the sand when this all started. And it was like, this isn't happening. This isn't happening. Right. And no, computers can't write coffee. Right? Then I decided, okay, let me take a look at this. And when I took a look and saw what it could do, I was like, oh my goodness, right? This is
Mhm.
absolutely amazing. So then it was the recognition of, yes, this is going to affect my business, but it can affect it negatively and it can affect it positively. So how it affected it positively was, I can use this tool in my business and save hours for work. Like I wrote an article for a client yesterday, and that article would have taken me, because it's highly technical, it would have taken me 3 days probably to do all the research and put it all together and understand it in my head and be able to put it out. And it took me less than an hour to do it yesterday. All I did was put in the transcript of the interview I did with the client, directed it to the client's website, gave it a sample article I'd previously written for the same client and said, write me this article. And it did, first draft. And I was like, okay, I just have to massage this a tiny little bit. And within an hour, it was done. So and then so knowing when to pivot if something isn't working. So as I said, with the copywriting, I know that times are changing, and this is something I've done all the way through my copywriting business. I would say nothing stays the same. Change is the only constant, right? Nothing stays the same. That's the difference between having maybe a corporate job as well and running your own business is when you run your own business, things are changing all the time and you've got to keep up with it and you've got to keep up with the trends. So for me, it was like I started the business at the dawn of the internet, right? Then things very rapidly changed. Google came along as a search engine, changed the demand for copy. Then you had other technical advances. So then we had to learn how to market online instead of offline. So that was a big change. So it was always constantly keeping up with how the demand really for the business. So what happened when Google started to come up and demanded content all the time, then writers also started to come up to serve that need. So then there was more competition. So then it was, how do we deal with this competition? So how do we position ourselves? So that was another change. Then it became a case of copywriting became a corporate job. So larger companies weren't looking for copywriters anymore because they had them in-house. So that dynamic had changed. So then it was, okay, well, who do we serve now? Let's go for the smaller companies. And then ChatGPT came along. And then it was, well, the smaller companies don't need us because they can just use ChatGPT. And so it's constantly dealing with the changes in the industry and being on top of that and trying to act early on that rather than late. Just recognizing what's happening. Always be looking and just accept things will change and welcome the change when they come. Because you can't change it, right? When it's happening, just because you want it to change doesn't mean it's going to change. So you've got to accept what's happening and then adapt accordingly.
Yeah, there's a lot of industries falling by the wayside due to AI. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
not paying attention to exactly what's taking place, you could easily be one of those companies that are obsolete. And so you have to be
Mm-hmm.
aware of the changing times. And
Mm-hmm.
instead of putting your head in the sand and not wanting to deal with it, utilize the AI
Mm-hmm.
because we have to realize that it's here to stay. And so the
Yeah.
best thing for us to do is to be able to get well educated and use
Mm-hmm.
it as our tool instead of fighting against it. So, hey, the last question I have for you is how could a person start a successful coaching business like yours and scale it if they had no money or low amounts of money? What would be the steps to start a coaching business and then also scale it?
Right. So the good news is that you don't need a lot of money to start an online business. And the tools to do so are getting cheaper and cheaper all the time as well and easier to use. So to make a start is just recognizing what it is that you're good at, that you're interested at, you have a passion for, you want to do, and that someone will pay you for. And I think a lot of people fall down on the what they'll pay you for part because they don't recognize the value of what they know. So I have a lot of people saying to me, no one's going to pay me for that. And then I ask them to go and do their homework, go and research, go and find people who are doing this, and then come back to me. And then they come back and, oh my God, I found this person who's doing this, and it's given me so many ideas and that. So I say, don't write off what you know, because what you know isn't what other people know. And people, as I said, are willing to pay, not really for the knowledge as such, but to make their life easier. If you can make someone's life easier in some way with the knowledge you know, then you can build a business on that. So that's the first step, is just knowing what it is you can build your business on. Then understanding who your customers are, who will pay for this, and then getting the tech tools together to build out, a website presence, whether it's a website, a funnel, getting your offer together, finding out what people will want to buy first, and understanding as well that people buy differently depending on the different personality types and where they are in life. Some people will buy your high ticket straight off the bat. Other people need to get that trust and work their way up. So you've got to have different offers to match with different price points to match different people's comfort level at the time of working with you.
Yeah, it's always important to understand your customer and know who it is that you're dealing with because there's a lot of different people that buy for different reasons. You've got impulse buyers, you've got people that research things for months in and months out before they actually pull the trigger. And so
Yeah.
to do your homework is definitely going to be
Mhm.
the best policy that any business owner can have. So, hey, Ange, thanks for each one of those answers to those coaching questions. Before we let you go, could you share with the Moonlight audience an outstanding business book or either a great personal development book?
Right. Okay, one I was reading recently is what's it called here? Building a Non-Anxious Life by Dr. John Deloney. I was just reading that the other day, just finished that. So I would recommend that as because when you're setting up a business, it, 80% of it is mindset. It's not really skill. Skill you can learn along the way, but if you haven't got the mindset right, you're going to find it a lot harder road to travel down. So looking at books like that that will actually help you with mindset, you know, dealing with things you can control, letting go of things you can't control, that kind of stuff, then I think that helps a lot in running a business.
Yeah.
Can be lonely if you don't have support. So get
Hmm.
support as well.
Yeah, mindset is a huge piece. I know I lost some data maybe about 6 months
Me
ago,
too.
and it
Okay.
still comes back to haunt me every time I go to try to find a certain document and it's not there, and it just weighs on me. I could go into a really dark place and even get into some despair behind all the information that just crashed
Oh
and I'm
no.
no longer able to gain access to. But through mindset, I'm able to overcome it. And just as you said, that is a huge piece for every business owner to
Yeah.
be able to have the right things floating around within your mind and be reading
Mm,
and taking in really good information. So I think that was a great suggestion. Ange, we want to thank you for coming on to the show, sharing all of that knowledge. Over 30 years of business experience, you've been able to build a multi-million dollar company. You're now pivoting into the coaching space. If someone wanted to reach out to you and connect, what would be the best method for them to be able to do so?
I think just to have a look at my website, which is com, ANGEDOVE. That's the best way to get hold of me.
Okay. Well, Ange, once again, thanks for coming on to the show. You've been a wealth of knowledge. We'll love to have you back anytime.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been an absolute joy. Thank you.